Shining Force 2 is to Shining Force like a sandwich is to bread. Yeah, bread on its own is pretty darn great, but a sandwich is the logical next step, and Shining Force 2 is the logical next step to the original Shining Force. I first played Shining Force 2 way back when it was first released in English in late 1993. I was 11 and tactics RPGs had already began to occupy a serious portion of my brain. I ended up playing through the entire game in a single weekend while visiting my grandfather in the countryside. Yes, I was 11, I wanted video games, not nature. How the 2 turntables and a microphone. SF2 takes the SF1 formula and improves on every single facet of that game. Whether it's the story, world building, combat, promotions, music, graphics, it's all improved. Sonic really went all in on this game. While the OG Shining Force was a force of nature in its own regard, Shining Force 2 is like that game on rocket fuel. It will blow the roof off your house and leave your furniture scorched to ash. Is that 90s Sega enough for everyone? I'm going to break down the game into bits and bytes and display all of its beautiful innards for all of you to see. From its bright, saturated graphics to its fast-paced strategic gameplay, from its brilliant soundtrack to its huge cast of characters, I'm going to showcase all this game has to offer, and I'm going to answer the question, am I being blinded by nostalgia? I've often said that Shining Force 2 and Phantasy Star 4 are neck and neck as my favorite game ever made, but is this just nostalgia blinding my eyes like an exploding sun vaporizing its entire galaxy? Let's take a look. Shining Force 2 was developed by Sonic Software Planning and released in Japan for the Sega Mega Drive in 1993. It came to North America and Europe in 1994. SF2 is actually the 5th title in the Shining series, preceded by Shining in the Darkness, Shining Force Gaiden, and Shining Force Gaiden: The Sword of Heija. Hajia. Despite the Shining series being a successful and popular one, Sega did a Sega and only allotted the same budget for SF2 as they did for Shining in the Darkness. That being said, Sonic really had the formula locked down, and regardless of the budget, they created a game that greatly improves on the previous titles. That being said, due to Sega wanting rapid-fire Shining releases, there are a number of bugs and oversights in the finished project. In the English language version, there is lots of unused dialogue, unused spells, there's a couple of chests that can't be opened, there are typos galore, and much, much more. Despite all of this, the game is still highly regarded today. Then again, if people can still love Oblivion and Skyrim despite the massive amounts of bugs in those games, of course, Shining Force 2 can remain loved. The story of Shining Force 2 sure is one you've heard 45,000 times already. Hell, it's basically the same as all of the other Shining Force games. A billion years ago, the king of the devils, Xeon, was imprisoned in hell for the crime of being way too damned tall. Now it's the modern day, and cultists are trying to bring him back so he can blow up the whole damn planet. It's up to a group of brave child soldiers to kill him and send him back to hell. It's that classic good versus evil with very little nuance in between. And that's fine. This is a Sega Genesis game from 1993. Game stories were not going to get to a good stage till several years later, but it's okay, it's an old game. You only need a simple objective, and killing Big Devil is 1000% acceptable. The game starts with a pretty long but super moody cutscene. It's a dark and stormy night, and some thieves are busting into an ancient shrine to steal anything that's not nailed down. They end up stealing some magic jewels that keep the Devil King Xeon imprisoned. This event kicks off a chain of events that will see the Devil King revived. Simultaneously, a greater devil named Geshp is breaking into Grand Seal Castle to put the king out of commission. Turns out Grand Seal is a massive seal, also used to keep Xeon sealed in hell. So between the Jewels of Light and Darkness being stolen and the break-in, we haven't even started the game yet, and Xeon's already on his way to resurrection. You eventually take control of a young swordsman named Bowie, who will, of course, become the leader of the Shining Force and send Xeon screaming back to hell. Along the way, you will meet a host of fun characters, some who will join the Force and others who won't. While the localization is, of course, not great due to when it was released, it's still a really fun time. The writing is leaps and bounds higher quality than in the original game. Alright, it's time to talk about all 30 playable characters that join your party, just like we did in the SF1 video. Bowie is the hero and thusly the only character you need to take with you. He's a decent fighter, he can use swords, and he can learn up to bolt level 4 with enough work. I would bring him along even if I didn't have to. I would recommend hitting him with some Protect Milk and Cheerful Bread early on, just to buff his defense and HP. One of the all-time greats IMO, Sarah by default is a healer, which means she can pretty much be replaced by a bunch of healing seeds. Her default promotion is more of the same, but you can find a Vigor Ball, which will allow you to promote her into a Master Monk. This turns her into a frontline fighter, gives her the ability to equip powerful glove weapons, and all the while she gets to keep her healing spells. Highly recommended. While Shining Force 2 does not have nearly as many centaurs as the original Shining Force, it still does have a few, and Chester is definitely one of the centaurs of all time. Since he joins you early on, he's probably your best bet if you want a centaur in your team. Eric may technically be better, but he also joins really late in the game, so unless you are a massive grind pervert like yours truly, you will probably use Chester. He's also great with the Pegasus Wing item, turning him into a Pegasus Knight, but you also get it so late in the game that you'll probably just skip that altogether. Jaha is your Dwarven Axe Fighter, powerful, great defense, not so great HP, you know the story. Pretty good unit, but I usually end up dropping him. You can promote him with the Warrior's Pride, which grants him better HP late in the game and also gives him access to swords, but the disconnect is that his battle sprite makes him look like a normal human being instead of a dwarf, and that really freaks me out for some reason. Kaizen is your first of 3 mages in the game. He focuses on the Blaze spell, with most of his other spells being not so great. A lot of people will suggest promoting him with the Secret Book, which turns him into a sorcerer, but I actually disagree with the modern consensus. I think he excels as a standard wizard, as Blaze 4 is a very affordable spell, meaning you will be able to cast it many times during a battle. One of my favorite characters in any game ever, Slade is a Ratman thief who after promotion becomes a Ratman ninja, and after a few levels he's a Ratman ninja with some supremely powerful magic. Slade is the thief responsible for stealing the Jewels of Light and Darkness, so he's actually integral to the plot, even though he basically just shuts up after joining your party. Shining Force, am I right? You can also eventually get him a special sword called the Gizarm, which will randomly instantly kill enemies that he attacks. Just absolutely awesome unit. Kind of a joke character, but actually really fun, Kiwi is a little tortoise guy with very low stats save for his defense, which is ridiculously high. A lot of Shining Force 1 players will just assume he's another joke character like Jogurt the Yogurt, but Kiwi actually levels up and can be promoted. He's basically promoted into Godzilla. His stats start to skyrocket, he can breathe fire, and he can hover over the map. His stats do kind of even out in the late game, meaning he's probably not great to use for the entire run, but he's still a pretty fun character for a while. Peter the Phoenix is broken, absolutely broken, and he will probably always be in your team. This guy always has massive stat increases when leveling up. When he's promoted, his stats soar even higher, he can fly, and if he dies in battle, he will automatically auto-resurrect afterwards. He's basically DPS, a tank, and a flyer all rolled into one. Just an absolutely wild character. He also has a lot of dialogue to contribute to the story, so yeah, Peter, he's really great. May is an archer and carries all of the archer tropes you'd normally expect. Not great defense, not great hit points, can use bows and attack from a distance, but what sets her apart is her incredibly high damage output. May is one of the hardest hitters in the game, meaning you will always probably want to use her, especially compared to the other archers you get. Oh yeah, plus she's a centaur, so her movement is real high. Geralt is this game's Wolfman, and he's pretty good. Solid damage dealer, solid defense, can move really well through forests. He does level out a bit during the end game, which means you can probably swap him out, but he's a good solid choice regardless of when or where you use him. Luke is a birdman and not very good IMO. Yes, he flies, yes, he uses swords, yes, he can get decent, but with Peter in the team, why would you even bother? Rick is a decent centaur knight who I usually use only for the fact that we have the same name. He also makes a pretty good Pegasus knight if you can hold out to get the Pegasus wing. Elric is a weak little archer man and should be shelved immediately. Rode is a weak little archer man and should be shelved immediately. Karna, Tyron, Randolph, and Eric are 4 characters you will meet at Creed's mansion. When you're on your way to exit the mansion, you'll get to choose to recruit one of these 4 characters. They are all pretty decent, but some of them are more decent than the others, Snowball. After you return to Grand's Island in the late game, you can technically come back and get the other 3 units that you didn't take, but they're all going to be pretty low level comparatively to your team. That being said, here's a bit about each of the 4. Karna is an elf healer like Sarah, but her spells are definitely of a higher quality. Karna also makes a great case to be promoted to a Master Monk, and since the English version of the game is bugged, allowing you to find 2 Vigor Balls, you can promote both Sarah and Karna into Master Monks. That being said, I almost always choose Karna when I play. She is an absolute tank. Tyron is a decent wizard or a decent sorcerer depending on how you promote him. I leave him as a wizard though, as he will gain Blaze 4, Freeze 4, and Bolt 4, although Bolt 4 is gained at such a late level, 68, that you will never see it unless you like grinding for hours and hours on end. He's a pretty good sorcerer too, but I just keep him as a wizard, you know how I am. Randolph is a solid dwarven fighter, but all of the dwarves in this game are pretty solid. He will definitely earn his keep if you pick him, but you have much better choices who almost immediately pass him by. Eric is potentially the best knight in the game, and it doesn't take much work to get him there. Even if you wait to get him the Pegasus wing, he generally outpaces all of the other centaurs by a country mile. Janet is a weak little archer and should be shelved immediately. Higgins is a decent paladin, but since he joins promoted, there's not really much you can do with him. You definitely won't be able to turn him into a Pegasus Knight. And since you already have Chester, Rick, and potentially Eric at this stage, odds are Higgins will be benched the entire game. Screech is your second of 2 Birdmen, and he's leagues worse than Luke. Do not even bother putting him in the team for a minute. Taya is an elf sorcerer, the only one that you get naturally without needing to use a secret book. She's pretty good, although I'm not a huge fan of how sorcerer spells work. Basically, sorcerer spells all have the ability to hit a 5-space area, but the more enemies they hit, the less damage they do. So if you're just using them to attack individual enemies, they can do some really high damage. But as soon as you go after multiple enemies at once, their damage output tanks. That being said, she's a cute elf girl, so of course I take her every time. Freyja is a vicar with the best healing spells in the game, but I'd rather take Sarah, Karna, or even Sheila instead of him. Jaro is another centaur knight, but he joins promoted as a Pegasus knight, so he has that going for him. That being said, he is a little bit weak. It doesn't take much to make him pretty decent, but once again, as a flying unit, Peter just completely outshines him. I don't know if I've ever actually played a game and used Gaian in my team. He's a promoted dwarven warrior, and while his stats are all pretty good, he joins so late that you have many other units that will be better than him already. Sheila joins promoted as a Master Monk, which means you have 3 Master Monks, which is great, but since she joins already promoted, you can't over-level her before the promotion. This means her stats are nowhere near as crazy as Sarah or Karna's, but she's still a pretty decent unit to bring along. Zinc! He's a cool robot. He's okay. Claude! He's a cool golem. He's okay. Chaz is a great wizard who joins very, very late in the game, so you might not even use him, unless you're a wizard sicko like me. He can learn Blaze 4, Freeze 4, and Bolt 4, but like Tyron, once again, you need to power level him really high to get him there. But even if you don't, he still has some great spells and a huge MP pool. Your final character is the Red Baron himself, Lehman. An absolute powerhouse of a warrior, Lehman has high stats, massive HP, comes equipped with the Sword of Darkness, and auto-resurrects after battle if he dies. He's also a very important story character with lots of lines. Another character that I always use. And no, I will not call him Lemon. Shining Force 2's gameplay picks up where the OG Shining Force left off. It's very comparable to its predecessor, but with some upgrades that make it hot, hot, hot. First off, you now have a dedicated search/talk button. As opposed to opening a menu and choosing to talk or search, now you can just press C to search a spot/talk to an NPC. A minor upgrade for sure, but it's one of those things that we take for granted in the modern gaming age. General operations within the game world are just what you'd expect from a game like this. You can walk around towns, buy weapons and items, talk to NPCs, visit the church to save. Battles are turn-based. Your dudes gain experience for fighting baddies, falling to 0 HP kills the unit. Spells cost MP, you know, it's a 16-bit role-playing game. Shining Force 2 is a snappy play, with towns, story segments, and battles all moving pretty briskly. Everything is well-paced and very little drags on or overstays its welcome. There's no run button, but you move at such a clip that you don't really need one. Dialogue is fast, the battle cursor is fast, attacks are fast. A lot of tactics RPGs from the era and beyond can be real slogs, but Shining Force 2 is anything but a slog. While Shining Force 1 had a chapter system, meaning that you couldn't really go back and revisit previous places, Shining Force 2 is a lot more open world. You can go back and revisit past places during several spots in the story, with the endgame really opening up to just about everywhere for you to revisit. Revisiting old towns or battlefields can often let you find items or recruit new characters. Shining Force 2, as mentioned, has a whopping 30 recruitable characters, giving you a lot of flexibility with creating teams. This also gives the game a lot of replay value. You could play this game a dozen times and have a new party layout each and every game. That is still incredible to me. On my latest playthrough, I used all 3 wizards for the very first time ever, and I've played this game like 20 times. The enemy AI in SF2 isn't great, but it is a lot better than SF1. Bosses don't stand around letting you arrow and magic them to death any longer. And just about all of the bosses have some sort of magic attack or ranged attack. Combat arenas are usually pretty great, but like SF1, all of the SF Gaiden games, and SF3, there are a lot of battles outside in forests. And as much as I love the game's soundtrack, as short as it is, hearing that one world map battle theme time and time again is wildly boring. This is the perfect excuse to pull out a podcast or a movie or my latest album, Void by Elk, to help pass the time. Ooh, smooth. Are you like me and fucking love promoting your units? Well, you can do that in Shining Force 2. Since the game is much longer now, you will have to wait till level 20 to do so. Promotions also don't tank your stats anymore, thank God. The game also has several promotion items that will allow you to promote a couple of your guys into rare classes. This is the only Shining Force game that does this, surprisingly. Never before and never again would you get promotion items. And it's a shame, these unique classes are mostly pretty dang cool. SF2 also brings back the blacksmith system from Shining in the Darkness. As you adventure, you will find chunks of mithril hidden all over the place. You can bring these items to the dwarven blacksmith late in the game, where he will randomly create mithril weapons for you. This can be a bit of a crapshoot, so make sure you save beforehand and also lay out a couple of hours for this, because the truly great weapons are so rare that you'll be resetting a lot. For example, if you ask for a weapon for Bowie, you will most likely end up getting a critical sword just about every single time. Critical swords are okay, but there are a lot better choices late in the game. If you want a Levanter, a one-of-a-kind sword for Bowie that allows him to cast Blaze level 3, you will be resetting a lot. The chance to get some of these really super rare items is just that, super rare. So, can you enjoy Shining Force 2 in 2025? I love Shining Force 2, and I have loved Shining Force 2 since I was like 11 years old, 500 years ago. There is a lot of nostalgia clogging up my brain for this title. So, can you trust my thoughts on this game? Can you actually believe me when I say Shining Force 2 is absolutely playable and, dare I say, crucial to play in 2025? Let me separate the nostalgia for now. Shining Force 2 is a 16-bit RPG. It is over 30 years old. That is immediately going to turn off a lot of people. I'm playing Claire Obscure Expedition 33 right now. Modern RPGs and old RPGs are very different things. I can imagine that the words Sega Genesis will probably turn off a lot of younger RPG players. But fam, this is the era of Chrono Trigger, maybe the best RPG of all time. Some games from this era truly do transcend time. Games like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI are not, quote-unquote, good games despite being old games. They are good games, full stop. These games were released on hardware in the decades past, but can still be fully enjoyed by modern gamers. And I truly think that Shining Force 2 belongs on the pedestal next to games like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI. And Phantasy Star 4, see my last video. There is very little that is wrong with Shining Force 2. The soundtrack is a bit short, there are a few too many forest battles, the good mithril items are a bit too hard to get, a couple units are basically useless, and there's a fairly rotten localization. Some very minor things that are outshone by all of the good stuff I have already gone into. Shining Force 2 is a fun and involving play with lots to see and do, and yes, it's still very playable in 2025. Shining Force 2 is a game that I absolutely loved as a kid and still love as an adult. And I hope that I've been able to show you that, while I am extremely nostalgic for this game, the game more than speaks for itself as an absolute classic of the genre. I've been Richard for RPG Fortress. Thank you for watching, see you next time, and don't forget to hug Kiwi. Goodbye.